Hi there, Huseyin. It's good to have you on the program. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Hey, thank you, Simon, for having me.
The first question I always ask is, how did you come to Treasury and why did you choose Treasury as your career?
Yeah, so after MBA, I started my career as financial analyst. And my long-term goal was to have a variety of finance experiences. And like putting Lego pieces together, I thought, okay, I will have a supply chain experience and auditing, corporate FP&A, and maybe one or two corporate finance like M&A and treasury. It actually get accelerated after a year later. My company decided to restructure my department. So I was looking for a new opportunity in the company, and then there was Treasury Manager role open. And I said, okay, I can do this maybe a year, 18 months, and we'll be going back to FP&A, and it all started like that.
So you kind of fell into it and here you are.
That's true, that's true.
It's a common thing amongst my guests. I think once you're bitten by the Treasury bug though, it's hard to leave.
That's very accurate.
And what would you say then have been some of the most satisfying times in your career to date, your biggest achievements?
Yeah, look, every day in your career is good because it's if you are challenging yourself, right? And I always think that the projects I'm working right now and the projects I'm gonna work in the future will be better than in the past because you bring so much experience, especially this is valuable in treasury arena. But looking at past, when I look at it, right after financial crisis, I implemented liability-driven investment strategy for a large pension fund. For me, it was a great learning experience, bringing not only theory with implementation, but also bringing really key decision makers together and agreeing on a future state, the treasurer, CFO, controller, and building a glide path to achieve that end goal. It was a very significant decision at the time, right after the financial crisis, but it was also very exciting for me to be able to part of that process. Most satisfying times, on the other hand, are more the times that when I work with different teams, the different members of the teams and broader team sense. For example, I moved from FP&A to treasury back to FP&A, and I took over a large team. At the time, it wasn't seen as a true business partner. And, I connected well with my team members and, by giving clear goals and understanding their challenges and their passions, we were able to pull things together and start to seen as a true business partner, and our stakeholders start to come back to our finance organization for an advice. It was really satisfactory, and particularly for me, that was transformational for my journey because I started earlier in my career. I was more of an introvert character. I will take more on a technical roles, and I was thinking, okay, I will be a subject matter expert, and that will solve most of the problems. But the reality is not like that. The more you advance in your career, the more you need to connect people, connect different problems and solutions together, and you need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Those are the times that I felt most satisfactory in my career, at least.
Can I just touch on, you said you took a business or the team from being not seen as a business partner to one where you were seen as a business partner. What were the key things that you learned during that process and things that you implemented to get the business to see you guys that way?
I think the key is setting up clear objectives, not only to the finance partners, but also your business partners, right? Expectations needs to be the same, and the communication needs to be really clear between the team members and your stakeholders. If your stakeholders are expecting a different budget number or different forecast, and you never updated them, and you go to your finance partners and deliver a different news or update, these disconnects really adds up, and you lose trust between departments. So as long as you are transparent, everybody is going towards the same objective, I think that solves a lot of the problems you see.
So clear communication is a fundamental in that.
That's true. That's true.
Now, Huseyin, you just mentioned as well, you were FP&A, you went to corporate treasury and back and bigger teams. How did you find that change between the FP&A side and corporate treasury? Because it's a move a lot of people get asked to do or want to broaden their experience. What was your experience and how did you find that?
So I would say having an FP&A or even another finance experience is really invaluable asset for me, especially in treasury, because it really helps you when you come fresh to treasury. It really helps you understand the internal business much better and the players, the processes, rather than just being a subject matter expert and always focus on treasury. And if I need to compare, I would say treasury has a broader time frame than maybe FP&A, because FP&A is laser focused on the month, the quarter, the annual plan, right? Because you have guidance and commitments to the street and actual forecast reconciliations goes on. On the other hand, treasury, you need to be part of that process, but you also need to be mindful of what's going to happen in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years time frame, because you have large debt maturities coming in front of you, or your pension liabilities, assets, cash commitments might move around different directions. Another key difference in my mind is if you come in treasury, you have more of a dual focus all the time. You not only you need to work with your business partners inside the organization, but you also work with external partners, like your banking partners or rating agencies and investment managers that manages money for you. So those relationships are important and impact the projects you work, the timing of the projects you work.
In terms of your career, Huseyin, you've worked in your treasury time, you've worked in FMCG with Kraft, you've worked in IT with Intel, CDK Global, and now with Aerojet Rocketdyne as the treasurer in the aerospace industry. How would you describe the differences between treasury in each of those industries?
You know, from treasury perspective, you're right. I mean, industry, but more importantly, the company size also is the main driver of differences, how treasury teams are resourced and operates. I will say, if I look at Intel or a large successful tech company, I mean, their margins are high. They are able to build large cash balances, and they put that large cash balance in work within treasury by investing them. So you will be required to have a much deeper understanding of the investment options, like bonds, asset-backed securities, and even maybe structured finance, as almost similar to a portfolio management company. But if the company is small, or like you are in FMCG industry like Kraft, your margins are low, and then you rely on external capital more heavily, right? So you deal with the debt issuance and capital markets and more your liability side of your balance sheet. And I said it is also important of your team size, because the challenge is, if you are in a large team, you know, those organizations can afford a dedicated person to FX. So you can go very deep and really build different structures on how you manage your FX. But if you are in a small team like CDK or my current team is, you need more rounded in different aspects of treasury. Not only cash management, should be able to turn around and do an FX trade and turn around and do a short-term investment. So I will say those are the key differences.
And from an industry perspective then, you didn't find it challenging moving across industries? It was more just the company size that dictated the roles. Is that right?
That's pretty true on especially treasury, because treasury is a little bit more transferable than, let's say, if you spend 15 years in one industry as an FP&A and then need to move to another industry. Because, you know, the treasury structure systems, you know, debt capital markets, that external part of the projects are highly transferable. You just need to learn the business and your business partners as you transfer from organization to the next one.
Because it's an interesting, I've never had someone summarize it for me so clearly, Huseyin. That's really, really useful, is because I agree, treasury is treasury is treasury. It doesn't matter within the industry. You certainly learn a different bit of jargon when you move across, but really it's a bigger company. You're more of a subject matter expert. You're going deeper into each of those specializations. And in a smaller company, you're a broader role covering everything within treasury. That's a great summary for me.
Sure.
What's your best advice that you wish you were given when you started your career? If you could sort of sit down with a 25-year-old and say, this is what I wish I knew when I was your age.
I think I touched base to this. I would say definitely test your comfort zone in each role you have, because you need to realize that if you are not failing one or two projects or undertakings you did, you are probably not utilizing your full potential. And it is really hard to make that commitment and raise your hand to something you might not feel comfortable or understand, but you'll learn a lot through the process. So I will definitely tell the young talent that go out of your comfort zone. It is easier to stay in the projects that you know the best and try to deliver the same thing after, but the growth comes when you push yourself out of your comfort zone. Another one, as you move on your career, you will realize, especially when you get supervisory roles, are that the results are really important. And look, your manager will love you, your supervisors will really appreciate if you keep delivering good results. But it is also important, don't take your attention from the journey itself, because how you achieve those results and be mindful of your team members and your stakeholders will also determine your long-term success, because it will have a larger impact how you perceived as a leader and team player than just the results on the organization.
And I think that's a really good point as well, Huseyin, is getting out of your comfort zone. It's actually okay to have failures and things that don't go right, because they're probably the times that you learn the most. And I think when you're younger in your career, you think the trajectory of your career is always upwards, and there's going to be speed humps. There's going to be, you know, failures and setbacks that happen in your career. And I think you're spot on. If you test yourself more and get out of your comfort zone, you'll learn more and you'll probably fast track your career on the back of it, which is what's happened to you.
That's right. And it's not just individually me, right? As an organization, when you think, if everybody acts risk averse, then the overall organization will not be moving forward as much as if you have a balance of risk averse and risk taking individuals.
Totally agree. What would you say, Huseyin, makes a successful treasurer in the eyes of the CFO, the CEO, the board?
You know, to prepare for this, I was listening to a couple of my colleagues that you met earlier. I think they said it well. You know, we are subject matter experts and it's a highly technical area, but being able to break it into pieces and explain more plain English is really helpful, because your CFO might understand you, but not necessarily the entire board members, right? So being able to maybe to dumb it down sometimes and explain in plain English is really important skill set. If I may, I will take it a step further, and I think myself, okay, if I was a CFO, what I will look at a treasurer, I said to myself, okay, I will really appreciate a treasurer that can keep the structure of treasury as simple than one that builds over complexity, because at the end of the day, the core focus should be on the business and the growth of the business itself. And rather than building layers of complexity within a technical area like treasury, just because it can be done, because you see like in the GFC or in current crisis also, simplicity really shines on its own value versus a complex structures. At the times of financial crisis, it becomes so hard to unwind them, understand what is going wrong, because there could be built up so many interdependencies in the investments or in the capital structure that Treasury is expert.
That's a really good way of looking at it, actually. The more complex, the harder it is to unwind during this crisis, right?
That's true. That's true.
So when you're recruiting into your team, then you touched on what you would want as a CFO. When you're recruiting into your treasury team, what do you look for in your hires?
Well, look, as a leader or a supervisor, it's the number one job, talent management, and making your team strong and, you know, perform well, right? And then part of that is bringing the right talent on board. For treasury jobs, you know, one thing, probably a necessary condition, is to have this a notch above analytical skills, right? Because that's everything we touch in treasury requires you to be analytical and thinking multiple steps ahead. But beyond that, maybe it is a necessary condition, let's say it, but it's not a satisfactory condition. Beyond that, I look at positive energy and attitude and some signs that this individual will be able to build relationships, not only inside treasury, but outside the treasury. Because we not only work within the finance, we also work with our external partners. And it is important to build those relationships. When you think about treasury in a broader term, right, it starts with the cash coming in and it ends through the full business cycle when cash going out. So you will have a lot of opportunity to work with different departments, accounts receivable, accounts payable, supply chain, M&A. And your success also depends on your soft skills and how you are going to be perceived as a leader and treasury talent in those projects.
Totally. So the softer skills are sort of the overarching, you need the subject matter expertise is important, but the softer skills are really the key things you're focused on.
That's right. Because if you have the analytical skill set, you can learn in the job the technical skills, but it is harder to teach you the softer skills.
I totally agree. And you know, again, I'm not a treasury expert in terms of doing your job, Huseyin. I certainly couldn't do that, but I look at it, and to me, treasury is kind of logical. So if you're getting good people who have got the good soft skills and can relate to the business and partner, that's fundamentally, that's harder to teach than it is to teach the treasury subject matter expertise.
Very true. Yep.
Have mentors played a role in your career, Huseyin?
Yeah, actually, I'm lucky in that perspective because I work in larger companies which had official mentorship programs, and I work in smaller companies which probably more on the run mentorship. I had both official and unofficial mentorships, and I will say official mentorships, in my case, I don't find it as effective as unofficial ones. And here what I think is that your best mentors are usually your managers or your manager's supervisors or your coworkers maybe, because you interact with them a lot more. If you are able to observe and deduct certain behaviors and understand and push back ideas, you will learn a lot more. On the other hand, formal mentorships, at least in my experience, work better if I have a really specific problem or situation I need to just totally independent advice. I find the day-to-day managerial supervisor relationships more helpful in terms of mentorships. You know, to tell you an example, when I first joined Treasury, my desk was right by the Bloomberg terminal. We had one official terminal, and I was sitting there because part of my responsibility was issuing commercial paper for the company. So I was a heavy user, come early in the morning and then post the commercial paper rates. During the day, however, other treasury colleagues, FP&A, investor relation leaders, or other finance leaders will come, especially our treasury director, capital markets, to check the news, maybe download data for their reports. So naturally, I will have a quick chat with them about their work, my work, what's going on in the financial markets. I can tell you, I learn a lot from those conversations, and that's probably the reason I stay in treasury longer than I thought, because as you bounce back ideas and chat with different people in the organization, your wisdom really improves, and you learn a lot more than if you just stay in your cubicle and then do your job.
Totally. And what's your advice regarding networking, and how have you approached that throughout your career, Huseyin?
Well, in treasury, it is really important because a lot of times the challenges requires subject matter expertise. So if one of my peer already implemented a project and then I can learn from him, it is highly critical, right? Make my life much more easier. But what will really work, you will see there's a lot of events. The bankers put events, other companies put events, or specific for treasurers. You not only connect, but try to, when you are in those events, try to understand the challenges your peers are facing, and try to make the dots. Like if you already worked on something and they are working on, I suggest strongly you follow up or offer your help, because those conversations and relationships goes much deeper. And when you need help, a lot of people come on board and try to give their time back to you.
Absolutely. How do you see the treasurer role changing in the next few years, Huseyin, particularly with the way that technology is moving so quickly?
I mean, it's not just the treasury, but I think overall finance is changing from maybe data gathering, report generating part is getting less significant, right? There is already robotics APIs or software advancements that are tackling those tasks, repetitive tasks. For treasury talent, being able to lead those projects and understand and communicate with IT, it is getting more and more important. It's also highly important not only generate the report, but being able to tell the story and generate an actionable information is critical. For particularly treasurer roles, though, I will say, I think a leader that can stick together different parts of the puzzle, like a glue, not only treasury, subject matter expertise, but understand the IR, tax, risk management, or even FP&A, will have more demand in the future than a pure specialized role. I base this based on my observation. CFOs are really becoming, their roles are really high demanding. They are highly involved with operations strategy, external partners and so forth. So there is a need to help the CFO, somebody that can understand multiple aspects of finance organization, rather than just lead the treasury function, but maybe lead multiple functions, are getting much more important. And to me, that's why decide early in your career if you want to be a more generalist and how further you want to go into your role, even in treasury. And if you want to be a specialist, that's fine. You can stay in your line and then get that deep expertise. But if you want to go further in the organization, I strongly suggest that you take a role, multiple roles within treasury, and maybe one or two roles outside the treasury organization to understand different aspects of finance.
It definitely gives you a broader perspective, doesn't it? So, and just touching on that then, so you think the treasurer role may become, treasurer, tax, investor relations, etc., bringing all those together a lot more moving forward? That's
true. Yes, because if you are leading an international treasury team, tax is as important as how you structure your account and treasury implications. And investor relation tax, treasury also goes hand in hand, certain aspects.
Definitely. No, we're definitely seeing a lot more of those roles coming together like that, Huseyin. So it's a good observation.
Yep.
Fabulous, Huseyin. That's really, really informative. I've enjoyed our chat today. Thank you for coming on the program, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Oh, sure, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Hello and welcome to the Treasury Talent podcast. I'm your host, Simon Lynch.